Right, let's go. Thanks very much for joining us today. It's a real honour to speak and get asked to speak at these sorts of things sometimes. And some of the work people are doing in the sector at the moment is good, so it's okay. But I must say, genuinely, the work that Caitlin and the team are doing at the moment is not only excellent, but it's really contemporary and really needed for not just for the young people, actually, but for our excellent teachers across the country who they're supporting. So it's a real honour to talk tonight, this evening, this afternoon. I'm going to talk for about 15 or 20 minutes around multi-touch points and a blended approach to outreach in the context of widening participation outreach and in the post-COVID world. I'm just going to start off without teaching Granny to suck eggs, just to give a little bit of an overview really of what widening participation is and where we've come from. Many of you will know this. But widening participation as an ethos and as an endeavour began really in '97 when the leader of the then opposition, one Tony Blair, talked around if New Labour were to form a government, their priority would be education, education, education. And when he became Prime Minister in May of '97, he then spoke around his wish and his new government's wish to see 50% of young people engaging in higher education. As the first term went on, and as we moved into the early 2000s, it became clear that this wasn't just going to happen by universities, the post-92s opening the doors a little bit more widely, but what was actually needed was some public investment to engage with these underrepresented students. So these young people, generally speaking from working class backgrounds, we need to go out and work with them to ensure that they know that higher education is an option for them. So Aim Higher was born, and many of you remember Aim Higher. And this was a collaborative outreach programme that was publicly funded to the tune of around £250 million over 8 or 9 years. And it got universities working together to break down barriers for working class young people to think seriously about their next steps in education. I worked with Aim Higher. It was a successful programme. We saw great results. By the end of Blair's term, he almost hit his 50%. However, in 2010, we saw the coalition government, and that saw an end to this public investments in these aspiration attainment type of publicly funded programmes working with young people. And it's exactly the same time what happened as they introduced £9,000 fees. So we saw this immediate marketisation of higher education. So there was no Aim Higher, there's no programme to encourage young people into higher education, and equally fees had gone up. And not only did that start putting young people off from the areas that we work in, but it saw universities start acting more like private companies, and marketing teams were replacing maybe outreach teams and this sort of thing. Again, as many of you know, the Office for Fair Access was created, and this said that, right, if you're charging over £6,500, then you need to be spending a percentage of every pound over that to replicate what Aim Higher did. And I think it was clear to all practitioners who knew how this would work out that this wouldn't work out. And it worked in pockets. I think nationally, generally speaking, what we saw was an end of collaboration. So universities were saying, how can we ensure that we carry on doing some of this work, but how can we make sure that those young people come into our institution? And we know that when widening participation outreach is done properly, it's done in collaboration and not with recruitment to your institution in mind. That comes with impartial outreach, but it shouldn't just be about our institution is the place for you. So I wouldn't go as far as say it's a failure, but I would say that there could have been huge improvements in the thinking process behind the offer agreements. So in 2014, we saw the reintroduction of a mini Aim High, which was then NCO and myself and some colleagues I know who are in the room led on that one in our particular region as well. So it wasn't a huge programme. It was around £17 million nationally. This is for England. But what it did do is it got universities talking together again. And somebody asked me once in an interview, I think, how do we get universities to collaborate when it comes to outreach and recruitment? And the simple answer is the government give us money to do it. So it was quite a successful programme for a couple of years. We did great work in our region. We enjoyed it. And it was successful to the point where the government, and it was George Osborne idea, we believe, then instructed HEFCE, now Office for Students, to form a new programme, a new programme that felt a little bit more like Aim Higher. So this is a £60 million per annum investment, with 29 partnerships covering all of England. So we landed with NCOC, now recently been rebranded Uni Connect. So very quickly, what it is the newest, latest national programme. We work with year 9s to year 13s. The young people we work with have to live in polar 4 quintile wards, so the most underrepresented in higher education wards. But the wards have to show signs of the young people living in those postcode areas having good attainment. The targeting, therefore, is very narrow. And our aim was quite simple. It was to double the amount of economically disadvantaged and underrepresented groups accessing level 4 or beyond study by 2020. And we've got a real good way to achieve that. As I say, the 29 partnerships cover all of England, and the partnerships are largely made up of universities, but also some FEs in there and some schools, and staff are based within the universities, within the FEs and within schools, but always led by university. So our particular programme is led by Keele University in North Staffordshire. So that's all well and good, but what do we actually do with the kids? You know, we could sit and talk about strategy and theory and government policy all afternoon, but what do we do? How do we make a difference? Well, first of all, everything that all the Uni Connect partnerships do is it has to be worked against a progression framework that we have the autonomy to write. It's signed off by OFS. But our local framework that we utilise across Staffordshire, Shropshire and Cheshire at the moment is this. So information, advice and guidance, going out, telling young people what they need to hear, basically. The second theme is university visits and experiences. Obviously not at the moment. We're going to talk about the blended approach shortly, but giving them a taste of what it's like to visit a university. Curriculum support. I know that there's some teachers in the room. We're not teachers, and we respect that teachers are experts in teaching and learning, but what we can offer with curriculum support, for example, would be a science day at Stash University or at Keele or at Oxford, where young people come in not that bothered about science, but they have a brilliant day and things are exploding, and you've got crazy academics delivering science sessions. There's a theory called the spark theory that I believe in, where these young people then go away and say, I enjoyed that. So maybe they stay after school, they're doing after school, they're doing a science club, or they just work a little bit harder in science. So we can help with that. We go to employers and we work with employers in the region and nationally to look at, okay, if you're going to get a degree, what am I going to do at the end of it? Graduate opportunities. And also we do a little bit of well-being, confidence building, the confidence to apply to university, sit down with a pen and paper and do a UCAS form. So what does this mean? What does it translate into? Well, usually pre-COVID, we do residential stays, 2-3 night stays on our campuses. So we've got staff based in the University of Chester. We've got a delivery team at Keele University, one at Staffordshire University in Stoke-on-Trent, and one at Harper Adams over in Newport and Shropshire. So we would do residential stays, we'd do campus visits. Our team would be going out into schools and doing talks in the classroom. We do mentoring, trips for employers, Saturday clubs. So we're active on a Saturday where we get young people on campuses or in different locations learning on a Saturday, parents' evenings, theatre support, and different types of third-party support leading on the third sector as well. But at the moment, what we've been doing since March 2020, has been almost wholly virtual. So zooming in to classrooms for live webinars every Wednesday morning. Our fantastic team have created 49 sessions that are on the website that young people can access. We've also had some real success in taking young people off timetable for 1 or 2 weeks, where we just go in and we teach our provision for 2 weeks, which has been really good, a huge impact. And we've also created a core program that I'll talk about a little bit later. And really proud, and this is not us blowing our own trumpet, because this is happening all over the country in Uni Connect, but we delivered 374 activities since the first lockdown. So really good stuff. I won't go into the evaluation side of things, but we have different layers. So we have 4 different layers of intensity. Level 1 being something like a very brief 15-minute talk in assembly, all the way through to maybe a level 3 that is a residential program for 3 or 4 days, or a mentoring program that lasts a whole term, and everything in between. So that's generally what we do. That's not unique to Staffordshire, Shropshire and Cheshire and High Horizons. That's happening in every corner of England through your local Uni Connect partnership. So turning attention to blended learning and how outreach has progressed. These graphs I'm going to show you now, I've knocked up, and they're a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I think there is evidence that sits behind them. So if we have a look, at this, graph here with the intention to apply to HE, this is what used to happen. So, for example, a university or a college who are working together would say, right, let's get all the year 10s and Stoke-on-Trent onto campus, and let's do a massive careers fair, and let's give them somewhere in the region of 200 to 300 pens that they can take away with them. Let's give them 6 or 7 bags that they can fill with stuff. And then what will happen is they'll come to university 4 or 5 years later. So, this sort of tongue-in-cheek graph sort of shows that. So massive careers fair. What we're going to do with them year 11? Well, we've completed it, mate. We've done it. And the intention to apply, because they forgot about it, it's not that hard eating, goes down. Maybe a little bit higher because they remember the day they went to Kiel, or they remember the day they went and had a look at Sheffield. But generally speaking, it doesn't have an impact. So what have we learned, particularly the last year, but what have we learned the last 5 years since we've been doing good evaluation? That actually this is what works. Again, this is a graph that I've knocked up, but there is evidence that sits behind this. So we may start working with a young person in year 9, say for example there, where their intention to apply to higher education is low, 0, 1, whatever it may be, but low. We will intervene. There'll be an intervention, an event at a campus university, and then they'll go away and they'll forget about it a little bit. So their intention to apply will drop a little bit. However, we will then intervene again, and it will go up maybe a little bit more than it did after the first intervention, and it'll drop again once they've gone home and they've thought about it and played football and played on Minecraft and gone out with the mates, whoever it is, over the next 2 or 3 months. So we'll intervene again. We'll do something else. We'll take them on a residential, and it'll go up a little bit until this process will continue, until we push them over the HE line, or at least give them a platform to make an informed decision, that they feel comfortable to make a decision about applying to higher education, and subsequently going and putting the bum on a higher education university seat. So again, excuse the hallelujah, it's a miracle image there, but we've been saying this for a long time, that we believe that this is what works in widening participation. I was really pleased recently to see a report from the Office for Students and other researchers to sort of finally say yes, that learners who engage 6, 7 or 8 times with a program like ours, with organisations like ours, they're 7 or 8 times more likely to be accepted onto a HE program at a university or studying HE within FE than those that engage less frequently, or of course don't engage with us or other organisations at all. So we feel that we've finally got some evidence to say, yes, this is what we should be doing. If you're going to be working and active in the widening participation and outreach arena, you need to be identifying young people, doing targeting, evaluation, but you've got to be working with them more than once or twice. You've got to be engaging with them 7 or 8 times if possible. And we've got some stats to back this up. So again, I don't know if anybody does know the Vice Chancellor at Kiel University, but if there is anybody in the room that does, that's the last time I'll mention this, Caitlin, I promise. Then this is a stat that you may be interested in. So since we've been active, since 2017, we've seen a rise at our lead institution, and it's not all about recruiting just to Kiel, but as the lead institution, Kiel gets a benefit from this. So we've seen a rise in young people from quintile 1 postcode areas in year 1 coming to Kiel, go from 12% to 20.1% actually, since 2015, sorry. And that's actually, in real terms, we've doubled the amount of those learners that are coming through the doors at Kiel University every September. So real success. We also know that those learners that are HE ready, those that are HE ready, of the almost 22,000 that we've worked with, we know that 46.5% of them that have engaged with us have enrolled at university, and that's against their demographic peers of 18%. So what we know is you're almost 3 times more likely to attend university if you engage with us or a program like ours. Again, it's not just higher ed, this is Higher Horizons data, but this will be happening nationally because the program is successful. So what do we know? We know that multi-touch points work. We also know that we've got the most creative, passionate and talented young people. Just because our young people live on ex-miners estates, council estates, live in challenging areas like I grew up, Park Estate and Burslem, it doesn't mean that they can't achieve. But what we also know is that they need that chance. They need that chance to engage in something that hopefully we provide. So really moving into blended now. So looking at virtual versus in situ and face to face. So what has really worked since COVID? What's been better because of COVID than when we didn't have COVID? Well, parents' nights for one. The last face to face in situ parents' night that we did had 8 families there. It was a good night. It was quite expensive for 8 families. We did a virtual parents' night maybe 7 or 8 months ago. We had 1,000 people turn up. So we're never going to do parents' nights face to face again. I wouldn't say it's a waste of time, but it's probably a waste of money. And certainly, we can certainly access loads more people if we do it virtually. Going back to the core program, so we've developed a core program that is exactly that. The main 6 themes of what we should be doing: looking at information, advice, and guidance, a bit of curriculum support, how to apply, what's the difference in universities. This is a 6-hour program split into 1-hour chunks. What we've seen with success with this is it can be delivered in a completely blended manner. So our staff could just go in and deliver it, or our staff could deliver some of it and deliver the other part of it virtually. We have got lesson plans for teachers, so the teachers can deliver it face to face. Heaven forbid, and we hope that there won't be another lockdown. But when the schools did close again, teachers were able to deliver it into living rooms or young people's environments, bedrooms, wherever they may be. So it's completely blended. It's completely agile and it's completely flexible. I'm really pleased that we've got 30 of those programs delivered in 30 different ways in 30 different schools at the moment as I talk. Something else that's been successful, and this is not really Uni Connect business, but more of a wider HE success, is access agreements. So what we call compact schemes. So that would be where a university would identify a cohort of young people and say, if you come onto campus 5 or 6 times and write a reflective essay, we will, instead of your offer being 3 Bs, it will be CCB, for example. Those schemes are always quite expensive. They were quite intense for the young people coming out of school quite a lot as well, missing learning. Actually, what universities are responding to COVID and saying, well, we could just deliver half of it virtually. We could just deliver the standard, this is what you do, and this is about our institution, and this is what we offer if you come here with regards to student support, nightline, whatever it may be, and what the accommodation's like for it. We could do that online, and then yes, we'll get them up and show them around and let them when we're able to. So that's been a real success as well, amongst lots of other things. But I don't think what we can't ignore is some things have been really not good. So there's been some things that we just have missed, really. We can't do campus experiences virtually. It's literally impossible to replicate. Residentials. One of the best things about residence is the social side, getting a group of people together in the student union with a band playing, disco, a quiz, mixing with our students, our student ambassadors, mixing with each other and having a feel of what would it be like if I came to Chester or Peel or Staff or wherever it may be. Also, our staff just being around, walking down the corridors, kids saying, "Hi Jess, how's it going? Looking forward to going on that trip next week to Oxford. Hi Andy, teacher, can we organise something? Can I talk to you about going on a trip to MMU?" We missed that. Yes, we've got Zoom meetings, but just being there. And human interaction, widening participation and outreach is a tactile endeavour. We have to build trust with these young people. There is an element of bonding with these young people and then trusting us to help them. So we've missed some of that. So all that given, what I've said, is blended the answer? And I guess in the words of the Beatles, yes, it is. So I'm just going to finish the last few slides on what a blended approach might look like. And this is something we've been talking about today and been talking about for a number of months in the management team at High Horizons. So I'll very quickly talk through this because you can see, but this is an example of sort of maybe what we're thinking. So we would engage with one of our target learners in year 9. We get them up to Kiel, we talk about routes to FE, show them round, give them an exciting campus tour, and that of course face to face. We send them away. Thinking about this graph now, the graph that is going up and down. Again, we may see later on in the spring term, year 9. And we would do a virtual talk. So I hope you enjoyed your time at Kiel University, but we're going to talk to you today about Kiel being a campus university and what is a city university like. We can do that virtually quite easily. They move into year 10, so maybe in the October we say, right, well, we're going to take you to MMU now. We're going to have a walk around the city. we're going to have a look. We'll take you to the theatre in the afternoon, and we'll have a look what it's like to be at a city university. And they'll go away and think about that, and then we could do virtual face-to-face. How to choose maybe some of the boring stuff. This is what the student find. We can do that virtual, and so on and so on and so on and so on. A residential stay. I think just what I will do is just highlight there something that I do think is important for our young people as well. Is do something. If we've got them there, almost crossing the line, they've applied and they're almost sitting on a university seat in September. I think there is something there that we should be doing. We don't want them to get used to like I very almost did. We don't want them to get used to earning a little bit of money mowing lawns in the summer, or McDonald's or Sainsbury's. We want to make sure that they push over. So there is something to do there around the end of year 13 and this slide into higher education. So is it a tour university? Is it getting all commuting students together in the SU? Is it making sure that they feel comfortable that when they come to university, there's people like them who've got regional accents, for example? So that's just an idea, really, of how a blended approach in outreach and widening participation could work. So why would we do this? There's lots of reasons, but I've just picked out a few here. So I think one reason, although not the main reason, is it's cost efficient. Of course it is. We're not spending money on coaches or lunches if we're doing virtual delivery. Because we're not spending money on coaches and buses, it's environmentally friendly, of course. Another good reason is that it does reduce the burden on teaching staff. So every time you take a young person out of school, as everybody in the room will know, it's a number of consent forms. It's not just the evaluation of consent to leave the school, it's booking the coaches and that sort of thing. So it relieves the burden on teaching staff if we're doing some sort of blended approach. I think another thing is if we'd have been doing this talk 18 months ago, I think most people think, well, this is not going to work. This is bonkers. We can't deliver outreach like that via Zoom. Well, we've learned loads in the last 12 months. We've learned so much of how we can deliver virtually. And not only that, the young people that we work with have got used to learning in that way. So we know how to do it. And lastly, I guess, it works. We've got proof that it works. So why wouldn't we do it? Why would we go all back to face-to-face? Or equally, why would we stick with all virtual? We know that this blended approach is starting to work. Last point in there, though, I think we do have to mention that face-to-face elements of outreach is still really, really important. And it's about getting that balance right between virtual and face-to-face in situ delivery. So last slide, final thoughts. The young people that we work with need our support now more than ever, for all the reasons, poverty, parents losing jobs, furlough, this sort of thing, lack of face-to-face teaching for a good chunk of their academic life. I think we should acknowledge that COVID's taught us a lot. Like I've just said, how we deliver, how we behave, how young people are behaving is different than before, and we've learned a lot from COVID and the lockdowns. We know that because of COVID and the COVID response, that public funds will be tight. Our programme has seen a £20 million per annum cut as of next year. Locally, we've seen a £1.2 million cut for Higher Horizon, so public funds will be tight. Is the blended approach some way to save a little bit of money? Because we've got to save it from somewhere. But I think the blended approach, blended delivery, it can work for all the right reasons, and we need to focus on that. We shouldn't do the blended approach, blended delivery, for the wrong reasons, just to save money, just because it's easier, just because we can do it from home. It can work, and it can work for the right reasons. It's about finding out what the right reasons are and then delivering on it. And the last point I'll make is that in the COVID recovery and in encouraging our young people to apply to university, we can't just leave this to the public first. Universities now have got a civic responsibility and a civic duty to stand up and say, we've got a duty to help here. We've got a duty to open our doors to do things like not charge parking fees for families who want to come and have a look around the university on a Saturday, for example. We've got a responsibility to start putting programs on that are based around our communities and not necessarily just based around getting the best attaining young people to attend their university. So universities have got a real duty now to help us and to help the young people in the communities that they serve in their locality and beyond. That's all from me, Caitlin. Thanks very much for listening, and I'm here with a notepad to take any questions and hopefully answer them.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ant. I'm sure everybody has questions squirreled away. So as I said, people, please do put them in the chat, or I'll throw the floor open in just a minute for people to unmute themselves or virtually raise their hands if they would like. That's always fun. But I've got a couple of questions, if that's all right. I've been scribbling away while you've been talking. The first question that I had was around something you mentioned quite early on that I thought was really interesting, the idea of taking kids off timetable for a bit, and doing those kind of 2-week long engagements. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about why you think and how you think that works as a model, and also how blended could play into that. Is that something that would lose power if it was kind of a more blended approach, or do you think that that could still have a place in a program like that?
I think that there is definitely, but I think the first thing to say on that though is that will probably become increasingly more difficult as we return to normal to take young people off timetable. We saw a little bit of an opportunity where our excellent teaching colleagues were starting to worry a little bit about how on earth am I gonna be able to teach half my class of the key workers and half the class who are sitting at home by Zoom, possibly on mum's phone. So we sort of tried to seize that opportunity, said, well, let us help, let us take those at home, for example, off timetable, and you can manage the ones that you've got in the classroom. And we did that a couple of times, once for 2 weeks. We also made that program. It was working with a third-party charity called Forward Futures, and I won't go on too much about it. It did win an award, actually. I'll just say that program. But it was a great program, and it allowed the family to be involved as well. So basically, what it was is it was called Creating Life on Mars, where we would have if kids were interested in science, they could say if we wanted to set up habitats on Mars for humans to live in. Scientifically, this is what we need. This is how we grow food. Those that are interested in the social sciences, they may say this is what sort of political system we would set up, and what media would set up, and what government would set up, and the whole family could get involved. So that's what the program was. It ran for 2 weeks, and we did it with year 7s and year 8s. The point, I think, to answer your question, is it was relatively easy at that time of COVID and lockdown to try and convince the schools to say, let us help. I think that there is a place for taking young people off timetable. We do that with residentials. So we would say to teachers, we think that it'd be really beneficial if we have some of your target learners to come to Kiel for 4 days and take them off timetable, and we'll teach them parts of the curriculum, but we'll also give them a good university experience. I think we can still achieve that. I think that if we did take them off timetable for a week or 2 weeks, and absolutely part of that could be physical in situ visits, and some of it could be zooming into the classrooms, which may make it more palatable for the teachers, because a number of SMT, and I understand this, I'm a chair of governors at a school, thinking, well, if they're not in the classroom, they're not learning maths, and that's an Ofsted might not be best pleased with. Something else, just very, very quickly, is what we've done in the past, is where young people have been struggling to get good quality work experience, we've been able to take those young people and give them some sort of blended mixed and approach of work experience, but also general widening participation outreach over a week. So that's another option as well, to explore year 10's work experience weeks.
That's brilliant. That actually answers my next question, which was about engaging with industry. So nice one on that. We've had a comment in the chat as well, which I think is really interesting, about a school having cancelled some sessions because they don't want students off timetable, and then another school coming in and saying, actually, we'd like that. We'd like to kind of give the students a bit of a different experience and catch up on the kind of maybe the non-curriculum elements that they've missed out on in school. It just goes to show what a sort of individualized experience the pandemic has been, and what an individualized experience the recovery is going to be for each school and each young person.
Yeah, I can, completely account for that being the case with High Horizons as well. And also we've had a number of schools that we know over a number of years exactly how they will behave as a school. We know what they want, when they want it, and how they want it. When the pandemic and the first lockdown come, you know, may not, you wouldn't hear off them for 3 or 4 months, despite sending things out and just giving general support. However, then you've got a school who never does anything, never wants to come on a trip. All of a sudden, it's like, these 50 online sessions you've done are brilliant. Like, why didn't we know about this before? You know, it's like, well, you know, you did, but that's fine. And that, again, that's an opportunity for us to try and build relationships with those schools that maybe not engaged with us so much over the last 5 years of this program. Say that, you know, we hope that you like the support that we give you through the pandemic. Now we're back to in situ. We come up and have a campus video. It's free, it's funded. But no, it's all schools, and I think all senior leaders and all governors behave slightly differently during the pandemic and the lockdowns and the closures, which was interesting and challenging for people who do jobs like us, practitioners. But no, completely sympathise with the comments in the chat there.
I've just got one more question for you, and then I'm going to throw open the floor, and that is around the digital divide, which we've been doing a lot of work on. And I was just wondering if that's something that you've run into over the course of doing kind of blended delivery. So thinking about access to devices, access to functional Wi-Fi for young people, and how you've got around that in the remote and virtual elements of delivery that you've done.
Yeah, I mean, what we without being too political here, I mean, as soon as the pandemic, as soon as lockdown happened, we cancelled our residentials, which is a budget of around £60,000, and we quickly, as a management team, said we're going to redirect all of that money to support those young people who will experience some form of digital and IT poverty. So we set about doing that. We set up systems, and we started getting laptops that we said that we would loan to the young people, and we would loan them. We would have got them back, and if the program ended, we would have distributed them somehow. That was okay by our funders, and then the funders. It wasn't the office students' fault. I think central government said no, this is not your responsibility. The Department for Education are going to do that, and I think, you know, I won't go into what happened thereafter, but I don't think it was an ideal. It wasn't rolled out in a way that maybe it could have been. I think we would have been quite well placed to help with that, because we work with these schools on a daily basis. So we weren't able to do much after we told to stop doing it. But yes, there has been a digital divide. I think we must really take his hats off to the schools who've done a brilliant job of badgering DFE, of exploring school funds, where there's been savings around printing and lighting and this sort of thing, to try and redirect funds to get laptops or iPads to families that just simply can't afford it. I think there's two things, and you touch on it there. That some of the stats that came out from the Department for Education and other sources was that whatever it was, 93% of houses have got a laptop. That doesn't mean that much, actually, because you might have 3 kids and mum and dad trying to work from home. So it's past the parcel. So that's probably not the best indicator of yes, everybody's okay. And the other thing is Wi-Fi. I don't think people thought about that. There's some brilliant companies and brilliant charities out there now who are pushing out whole packages, so ready loaded iPads and laptops that come with the function to connect to the internet on there. But I think that was certainly a bit of an afterthought for many people. I spoke to one head teacher quite early doors in the pandemic, and I was quite surprised by what they said, actually. But they said, I can't believe how many of our young people have got no IT at home, have got no internet at home, and when this is over, we're going to completely rethink how we give homework out, because now I know that when kids say I haven't been able to do that, it's because they can't Google this, they can't do a research project on Shakespeare, because they just haven't got the IT at home to do it. So again, it's another good learning, but maybe quite shocking, because I think because our job it is to work with economically disadvantaged young people in the community. We know that there's poverty in areas. We know that there's poverty in Stoke-on-Trent because we work in it and we see it. And hopefully people will realise that. And hopefully when the government talk around levelling up, you know, whatever levelling up may mean, hopefully they realise that there's young people in Stoke-on-Trent, in Hull, in Rochdale, you know, in North London, who are in poverty. And that's what levelling up should be about.